Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Some major beef going down on the final Sunday of the most recent CDL weekend, and Dashy was instigating big time. Some Kismet versus Drazah beef going into the major. Of course, the Subliners taken down FaZe last weekend in a Game 5 thriller. Kismet not at all happy about the way that Drazah treated his team as a result of this situation, and very much looking forward to playing them again come the event itself. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty we've got to dive into today. Firstly, I know some of you guys probably noticed this last night, that MrBeast appeared to be in the CDL chat. Now, I'm pretty sure it's just one of these, like, fake accounts or whatever it is. I don't really know how they do it, but they get verified somehow, and I guess they just go in, like, big Twitch chats and stuff to try and, I don't know, like, scam people. I'm supposing that's what the plan is. I'm pretty sure it wasn't actually MrBeast's real account, as Clay was talking about here, but there was some pretty funny things in the replies here, like this from Bronco. I made 48 players play Invasion R-Point for 100 days, and as Clay says, yeah, I would break. There's absolutely no way we're making that work. And as Clay said the other day, there was some debate about Invasion Hardpoint being the first map in the series. I think the general feeling probably is from the players that if there is to be a map to go from the map pool, it's probably going to be Invasion. I don't know if that's necessarily true, because Invasion Hardpoint still gets played a fair bit. And even if Invasion Hardpoint is the worst map, which I think it probably is, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of it at all. And I know that to watch it from a viewer's perspective, people are fed up of Invasion now. But that is because it gets played a fair bit. Subbase doesn't get played as much. So if you ask the pros, hey, Vista is coming in, what map do you want to get rid of? A lot of them are probably going to say Subbase because they don't particularly like it, even though Invasion might be worse, and I think probably is worse, but then again, Subbase also has its dodgy spawns, so I kind of wish both maps would go, but then hopefully Vista is at least viable enough. I'm pretty sure that it should be, and a lot of the pros are pretty keen to get Vista in right now, but it's not going to happen anyway until after the major. So minus Invasion plus Vista is probably what might happen, but it really depends on which teams like what's going into, you know, post-event, shall we say, and I wonder what Carolina's opinion on that might potentially be, but I think their team might like that Vista map a fair bit given the pace that they bring to the table at times. There was also this debate about the anti-cheat. We saw like 20,000 votes here on Twitter, and even T-Dog put this actually on his YouTube the other day. Do you believe COD anti-cheat works? Like, it works in some regards, but it just works at like, what, 1% capacity? Like, what is the efficiency of this anti-cheat? So, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't really seem to especially work. I do also want to make a formal apology here to ErikBooM, because as Arsenal points out to me here, as I said yesterday, well, I wasn't really sure, to be fair, whether Erik's damage was the worst we've ever seen in the league, and apparently it's not. This year, there have actually been 2 series worse than that. His 5,600 damage was, actually third place, because Assault was second with 5,607, Major 1 winners run against FaZe, and then the absolute worst in the season so far, I probably should have guessed this, to be fair, was GodRx, when they got slammed by OpTic 3-0 and he got 5,000 damage. But still, that was like a legendary woeful series from GodRx, and ErikBooM's series weren't too far behind yesterday against the New York Subliners. So look, there's still no doubt that the Subliners are the much better team, and the fact that Miami Heretics need a roster change at some point. Whether Erik stays, I don't know. It seems rather doubtful right now, but just to say that it was the 3rd worst series of the year in terms of damage output so far, at least. This is how the standings shape up at the moment here. It's very competitive down the bottom. It's not so competitive up the top. New York Subliners, of course, with their last place finish at the major, they're still at 110. I mean, all of these series wins are online, which is kind of impressive. They're at 110 already, given the fact that they've only won these points online after getting 0 at the major, right, for the top 12 placing. And this year, there are more points for the major, so it's important. But look, the top 4 is the top 4. Nobody's massively surprised. And I feel like anyone in the top 4 can probably beat any of the other top 4 as it presently stands. I don't really have faith in anyone below the top 4 beating them now. At the start of the season, there were a couple of teams I thought might be able to. Obviously, the Subliners did have their very poor Major 1 split. OpTic got upset by Miami in that series, of course, that they played before the major. And then, even Ravens, of course, beat Subliners at the major. But there's like an even surge at the start of the year. I think we're capable of, winning a map 5 against one of those top teams. But now it just doesn't feel likely anymore. It feels like the only teams that are going to beat these guys are the other top teams themselves. But it also feels like a lot is possible with regard to that. Like, it wasn't long ago that Ultra looked effectively untouchable. And on LAN, I guess we'll see whether that remains true. But I don't think that is true anymore. And I really feel like it's going to be fascinating Championship Sunday at this upcoming event. But as we look further down, Rocker is still 5th. They only have 5 series wins on the season. But they're still 5th for now, just about. Surge, to be fair, actually got to 70 after beating Gorillas. So, you know, honestly, like, World Championship qualification for Surge is not out of the question, but I don't think they'll get it if they continue with this current roster. Like, they're just nowhere near good enough. Ravens are bottom of the league. Boston are at 40. Thieves are now at 40 as well. So Thieves have gone up 2 places. And right now, like, I actually said this a couple of weeks ago, and I know that I kind of, you know, I wasn't sure whether I should have said it or not because Thieves were looking woeful, but I did say that I think Thieves will make the World Championship, and I think, like, you've got to be quite confident in that right now because Thieves actually are definitely better than many of the just tragic teams in the league. Like, Miami are terrible, Vegas are terrible, Ravens I think aren't particularly good either, Surge are terrible, and Boston should be better than they are, but they're pretty terrible as well. So it's a big fight down here for the World Championship qualification spots, and it's not going to, you know, stop, right? Because the final event, you get 100 points if you win it. So theoretically, anything is going to be possible down here right to the final event of the season, which is going to be pretty fascinating. But Vegas, baby, I mean, how many times have we been used to seeing Vegas Legion or Legion over the last couple of years rock bottom of the league? 2 series wins, 20 series losses or whatever. And here they are, 5-8 this season so far, +2, they're up to P7 in the championship. So, you know, really cool stuff to see how that goes going forward. Gorillas, though, they're on a regression arc. They're going to need to make a change. Obviously, Zinni was saying it yesterday that as far as he's concerned, LA Gorillas need to make some sort of roster change. I don't know if a one-man change is enough, to be perfectly honest, either, but I guess we'll see what happens over the coming days. So, if you guys weren't familiar, there's a bit of drama last night between Scrappy and Drazah, but it wasn't just Scrappy and Drazah, of course. That was the main one. We talked about it earlier on today, but Drazah himself was also going pretty big time against some other players, right? Drazah in his post-game interview, we saw it, I shared it in last night's video, where he basically said Toronto were terrible, but then Puckett said, hey, like, what happened then against New York Subliners, right? Because you guys managed to lose to them, so are you terrible, or, you know, what's the situation over there? And Drazah said, basically, yeah, they're terrible as well, they just exposed us in the search and destroy, but now we're better at search, so effectively, that's not going to happen again. Subliners aren't very good, and we'll beat them come the event. So, I don't know if you thought Drazah was, like, forcing the storylines of the beef a little bit, I kind of did, but I'm here for it, you know what I mean? Like, if Drazah's going to call out these other teams, absolutely fantastic stuff. So, Dashy, I mean, look, he's doing my job for me, isn't he? Sensational work here from Mr. Brandon, but he says to Kismet, hey, Kiz, did you hear what Drazah said in his post-match interview by any chance? Like, were you aware that he effectively, you know, called you guys out and said you were terrible and all this stuff? So, you know, definitely tried to get some sort of reaction here from Kismet. And we know that Kismet isn't one to back down from anything like this. We saw what happened, of course, with the Bulldog when he was at the World Championship last year, and Scrappy was during the event saying that those guys, you know, they were just a one-man team, basically. That's what Scrappy said, that they were just HyDra and then the other guys were just there for the ride. And obviously Kismet and the rest of the guys weren't so happy with that assessment of the way that team was put together last season, and very much made the point known that, yeah, they are here to play. They turn up to the championship Sunday, and I think the talking point was from Subliners that they turned up for their Sunday warm-ups before that championship Sunday, the World Championship, way before Toronto did, and they knew mentally before they went into that series they were going to smoke him, and that, of course, is exactly what they did. So when, you know, you don't necessarily want to challenge Kismet, the Bulldog, to a beef war, because if you do, Kismet's going to note it down, and he's probably going to come with a vengeance next time. And to be honest, Drazah came into yesterday's series up against Toronto with you know, a point to prove. He said that coming into the series, and he delivered a great performance. Kismet often does the same thing when they play, and of course, it's not like Subliners are so far behind FaZe that it's unlikely. Subliners literally beat FaZe the other weekends, and okay, FaZe might still be the favourites next time they play, maybe if it's on LAN, but you've still got to back the Subliners to at least make things very interesting. So as Kismet says, you know, I back the beef. They shot my body map 3, and I won that, right? So yeah, they shot his body map 3 of the series against FaZe. Of course, they then went on to win that series in 5. Now I'm terrible, according to Drazah, noted down. And obviously, you know, Dashy comes out with this good, which is like the whole let the hate flow through you thing, of course, from Star Wars. So I think the league is setting up really nicely right now. We've got big storylines between all of the top teams, the FaZes, the Torontos, the Subliners of this world, and then OpTic are thrown in there for as well with good measure, which is, you know, OpTic are looking good as well. Yes, they've been a bit up and down. They've lost a few maps they probably feel like they should have won, but OpTic are still beating all the teams they should be beating, and every team seems confident they're the best team. Like Subliners and Skyz is confident that those guys are the best, and you can't blame them based on their recent performances. It's only online though, so they will have to prove that when they come to LAN, which of course they couldn't do the first time around. FaZe and Drazah will definitely be feeling they're the team to be right now after just beating Toronto. Toronto will still be thinking that they're the top guys because they won the most recent event, and OpTic will still have a lot of confidence, as they always will, especially because OpTic play, I think, Ultra next weekend. So yeah, this is actually the next game that Ultra play is against OpTic. I did actually just look this up to see when they play the Subliners next, but you can look at the qualifiers all you like. The reality is that many of these games should probably occur at the majors, because last major we had 3 of the top 4, theoretically top 4 teams in the championship Sunday, with Minnesota Rocket the only exception. This time I'm probably expecting 3 or 4 of the top 4, to be fair. There might be another team that sneaks in somehow, depending on the way the bracket works out, but on paper here, it probably should be those 4 on the Championship Sunday, which obviously makes things pretty spectacular. So OpTic Toronto very soon, and if OpTic were to beat Toronto then they'll feel like, you know, they can win the tournament, right? So yeah, it's going to be fascinating. But if I also look at the Subliner series here, right, of course, OpTic have some big games next week against Toronto and New York, but as we scroll further down, we will find on Monday, April the 29th, Subliners versus FaZe, and then New York Ultra to close out the stage as well. Just, by the way, going into, and also we've got FaZe Ultra here as well. So there are some big games coming up, which is very exciting over the next, well, few weeks, really. Of course, the major should be showing a fair few of them. But New York FaZe, especially after all this stuff, it's going to be another banger. It's cool that they play again next stage, because they played this stage, they're going to play next stage. Ultra New York, man, so many storylines between the top teams right now. Also wanted to mention, if you guys, the Cheez-It duos of the week, or whatever it was that OpTic are putting up over here. So of course, they go for Shotzzy and Pro, which I think was justified. Team of the week, I think, was interesting here, right? Shotzzy definitely, I think, after his performance, deserved to be on there. And I think that sometimes the OpTic guys aren't so keen to put, like, you know, Scumpins in. They don't always want to put OpTic guys in there just because they think, oh, it's going to be biased and all this. Drazah deserved it as well. I always try and lean, though, towards players that have played 2 matches. Like, if a team played 2 games and they won both of them, I think they, you know, I tend to value those performances a little bit higher. But still, I can't really, you know, scoff at Drazah and Shotzzy's performances this weekend. And maybe also HyDra as well. I feel like from the Vegas side, I might have taken Nero or something, but of course, Attach was always good because, you know, he just always tends to be good. Just before we close out the videos, I wanted to share this for you guys. So out of 20 players who have made 2 or more Champs Grand Finals, only 7 have a 1+ KD combining all their performances, and these are the 7. It's quite interesting to see that by the numbers, aBeZy is one of the best players ever at the World Championship. For those that only have 2 rings, aBeZy's arguably like the best. I mean, these are his numbers. This is his KD. In the role that he plays, his KD. And maybe now you can say, well, the World Championship is different and all this, which maybe it is. Well, of course, literally it is. So like the format is different nowadays. But even then, back in the day, these pros got the group stages to farm. That's kind of how it would go. Like, Formal's KD of a 1.44 at the Infinite Warfare World Championship is incredibly impressive and is like the best champs performance ever. But I think he had a 1.7 coming out of the group stages because, you know, they would play teams that they'd be expected to slam. Nowadays, that's not really the case. So I think, honestly, aBeZy's performance here do deserve a lot of credit. But yeah, he has a 1.155 KD. But of course, this is just looking specifically here at Champs Grand Finals. And yeah, aBeZy's topping the numbers. He has the #1 KD in a Champs Grand Finals, #1 kills, #1 appearances, and of course he's won 2 of them, right? But yeah, obviously going for the 3rd in this upcoming season, and based on what we've said over the last few days, maybe it could well be possible. So very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Ben, thoughts on the recent timeline drama?
So
oh, it's spicy. You know what? TacticalRab's probably sitting here, you know, like almost
he just rose out of his bed like the Undertaker. We're going to
you know, he like had it like a quick 11 p.m. fucking coffee and started ripping videos.
What happens to TacticalRab's asleep while the drama's going down, though?
The drama doesn't go down until TacticalRab's awake.
There you go. Making it move straight towards B. First blood is all that's